Trump orders the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. The global oil chokehold is pinched. Is this World War III? On April 12th, Donald Trump dropped a massive bombshell online, announcing the U.S. Navy will blockade the Strait of Hormuz, intercepting ships paying transit fees to Iran and clearing Iranian sea mines. This isn't diplomatic rhetoric, it's a war declaration. Incredibly, as this order was issued, U.S. and Iranian delegations were still sitting at the negotiating table in Islamabad. After 20 hours and 3 grueling rounds of talks, Trump stated most issues were resolved except the critical nuclear knot. Before the negotiating table was even cleared, the aircraft carriers moved. Trump's logic is blunt: blockade until you submit. He directly threatened that the U.S. military will completely terminate Iran's remnant forces. This is a knife to Iran's neck. But does Trump actually have the capability to blockade the strait? Objectively, the U.S. military presence is heavily armed. U.S. Central Command immediately initiated mine-clearing missions. 2 Arleigh Burke-class destroyers sailed directly through the strait into the Persian Gulf. Equipped with the Aegis combat system, they can counter air and underwater threats, soon to be joined by unmanned submersibles. The U.S. Fifth Fleet's Carrier Strike Group is hovering nearby, with amphibious assault groups and Marines continuously pouring in. But the Strait of Hormuz is only 30 kilometers wide. Iran's anti-ship missiles, mines, and suicide boats are waiting. Iran can easily launch saturation attacks in these narrow waters. The U.S. military cannot completely clear it within months. Embarrassingly, the U.S. had 3 littoral combat ships dedicated to sweeping mines, but they fled to Singapore and Diego Garcia. Trump's order sounds domineering, but executing it is far harder than imagined. So how will Iran counter this bold move? Tit for tat. The IRGC Navy Command immediately declared total and absolute administrative control over the Strait of Hormuz. Only non-military vessels are allowed through. Any military vessels attempting to cross will be intercepted in the harshest manner. Iran's diplomats fired back, stating Trump cannot open the strait, he can only restrict it. Their message is clear. If America blockades us, we will blockade the entire world. Since late February, shipping in the strait has completely halted. Crude oil skyrocketed past $110 a barrel. The world loses 15 million barrels of crude every single day. 20% of global oil trade passes through here. Choking this strait means violently choking the world economy's throat. Trump's blockade tells Iran, you choke it, I'll choke it too. But the true cost is paid by the world. Around 3,200 ships are currently stranded west of the strait, including 800 tankers holding over 100 million barrels of crude, just floating and waiting. Morgan analysts warn that if the strait isn't fully reopened until July, oil prices will spike, retesting the $120 peak. Goldman Sachs stated Brent crude's annual average could exceed $100 a barrel this year. When oil rises, power plants fail. Thailand, Pakistan, and Bangladesh face devastating double blows of severe fuel and power shortages. Shipping companies must detour around the Cape of Good Hope, extending journeys to 41 days and massively increasing transport costs. This isn't a localized conflict. It's the terrifying prelude to the global economy being dragged directly into the abyss. All this is happening at an incredibly delicate juncture. The US and Iran just reached a fragile 2-week ceasefire. But before the ink dried, Israel launched massive airstrikes on Lebanon. Iran immediately closed the strait again, fighting while talking. Trump choosing to issue a blockade order during negotiations effectively extinguishes the absolute last spark of a diplomatic resolution. Regardless of the motive, the Strait of Hormuz is the global energy artery. Whoever controls it controls the world economy. Trump puts a knife to this artery, and Iran puts another knife against it. Whoever blinks first will lose everything. But the most likely result is that neither blinks and the entire world bleeds. The powder keg is fully ignited.